Welcome back, everybody. It is Wins Above Fantasy, episode 172. I'm Van Burnett, joined as always by Steve Gisueli. For those of you joining on the podcast, happy official opening day. Hope you guys get all of the single day stats that you've dreamed of all off season. Those of you joining on the stream, thank you guys for joining live as well. We'll be doing this usually Wednesday nights throughout the whole season. You guys should definitely join on YouTube. You guys can follow us on the Pitcher List channel or on Wins Above Fantasy on YouTube. But yeah, Steve, this is one of our favorite episodes. It is the Chalkboard episode, which for those of the OGs who have listened to Wins Above Fantasy since 2020, this is our annual show where we call out our targets and our fades for the season. And this year we have second time in a row we've done this, a PitchCon prize winner special guest who joined us and added his targets and fades. So we'll play that at the end of the podcast tonight. But Steve, it's here, man. Opening week. I know I took the day off work. I'll be golfing with some friends. We got our whole lineup from like 2 p.m. Central all the way till 10 p.m. on whose houses we're going to. It's a little annoying. There aren't games earlier and throughout the day, but that's fine. Overall, we've made it through the off season, man. How's it going?
Yeah, this is great. The best way for me to describe this is opening day for me. It's the feeling that you got on Christmas morning when you ran down and like opened up and saw all those presents and just were in awe of everything as a young kid. That's what opening day is like each year for me as an adult. That's where that feeling now exists in adulthood, which is,
does it go away? Does it go away if your guy goes like 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts, or no?
I mean, a little bit. Yeah, the frustration comes quickly, but there's still, the whole season in front of you. There's still 161 games left after that. This is it. It's just the start of a new year. You're still excited after draft season and setting your lineups and having your guys ready to go. It's a great feeling as a baseball fan, as a fantasy player, as a fantasy analyst. There's no feeling like opening day. So it's great. Yeah. Annoying that the games aren't scheduled throughout the day. Like baseball should be on from 12 to 12 on opening day, and all 30 teams should be playing. But don't want to start complaining too much on day -2 as we record here. But yeah, really cool that we come out on opening day the last few years now. It's been great and awesome that we were doing this episode, right? This is like the quintessential WAF theme. Like this was the spirit of our podcast, and we wanted to have something to discuss throughout the year and hold ourselves accountable and look back on our takes. And that's what the chalkboard is. We're putting our guys up there. We're writing them down, remembering for the year and seeing how we do. So excited to get into it. Pumped about the guests that we have coming on the podcast later on. A lot of fun. That's now becoming a great tradition. So excited to get into it.
Yeah, can't wait. And for all the listeners, I know a cool new thing for Pitcher List is on opening day, they will be having MLB TV streaming live with commentary from Nick and some friends. That is on playback.tv/Pitcher List. And yeah, if you have MLB TV, you just enter your login credentials and you can watch. Should be a great way to spend the day. But
we'll
Steve,
have to we'll have to get a WAF takeover for one of those.
I know.
Talk to Nick and maybe do a WAF day where we watch a bunch of baseball with y'all. That'll be
yeah, and we got some similar home league builds too, Steve.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll base it on the guys we have the most shares of, like last week. Yeah. So Chalkboard, here we are. And hopefully you guys are feeling this tradition with us because like we said, we've been doing it for 5 years. But if you're new to it, this was the spirit of accountability. It was actually one of our listeners and friends of the pod who said, it seems like, analysts around the industry might make all these calls, but if, they go upside down and don't work out, you never hear them coming back and saying, oh, well, I had that one completely wrong. So that was kind of the original spirit of accountability. Now, it's not to say that we're perfect by any stretch, but it did lead to this very fun tradition of saying, all right, at the start of every baseball season, we are going to pick targets and fades. And we're defining the success of that on whether they finish 20% better than their ADP or worse than their ADP, according to the Razzball Player Rater. So that's 5x5 settings. And we base the ADP off of the month of March for NFBC, all drafts. But it's been fun every year, Steve. I mean, there's been years where I've came out the victor and, gone 4-2. There's the year right after that, the script flipped and you dominated. We've had some that are middle of the pack. And this year we're a little bit more high and tight because we have our guest on who's got his as well. So rather than doing like 3 targets, 3 fades, we got 2 each. So I don't know about you, but I was really looking at the ADP list. And honestly, what jumped out at me is like, I think it was harder this year than ever before. Like, I think that the market groupthink of ADP was in line quite a bit. Like, I wasn't arguing with myself over who to pick. I was more thinking, oh man, like, who is a qualified pick? So I had to put my like thinking cap on for this, but I'm pretty happy with the names that I landed on. Unfortunately, they're not names I have loads of shares of. So that's a topic for another day. But how did you find the whole process this year?
Yeah, I found it a little difficult to find fades.
Yes, that especially.
I think that I also maybe found a little bit of a cheat code the last few years with like those speed only guys. I think I went like,
Yeah. Jake McCarthy
Jake
or
McCarthy,
Miles.
Series. I forgot who
Who's
the
a little
original one.
Miles Straw.
Yeah, Miles Straw. These guys that were boosted up because of all their speed and didn't really have strong bats. I don't really see that in the player pool this year. There's no like guy going around, I'll pick 100 that's strictly just for his speed. Like, I think maybe Xavier Edwards fits that this year.
Yeah, he's the
But
closest
he
one.
may have a little bit more of a hit tool than a few of those other guys. That thinking about it, I think that would have probably been mine. I don't know why he just didn't come across in the ADP. Maybe I didn't hate
It's
his
too late.
ADP
It's too late
that
to
much,
change.
right? Yeah. No, we're done here.
Yeah,
But
142 for Edwards.
yeah, so a little bit lower than those guys. I think well within range, so would have been a good one. But maybe I'll get partial credit if that hits because that's usually been my style.
Well, just to tease out the exercise. So Xavier Edwards, 142 ADP, and basically for Steve to have him as a fade, he would have had to have finished outside of the top 170 on the player rater. So if you guys are listening at home, maybe throw some of your picks our way, on the socials, and we can collect anybody else's chalkboard picks for the year and do like a little scoreboard at the end of the year. That'd be fun.
Yeah, give us any of them in the chat too if you're joining on the live stream tonight. So yeah, it's a lot of fun, and we'll check in throughout the year. We always do. And it's a good way to keep tabs on some of our calls, which is always a fun exercise throughout the season.
All right, so we starting it off on the positive foot or negative foot here, Steve?
You're leaving a lot of these decisions to me lately on these weeks. Let's start positive. Let's start positive, and I'm gonna kick it to you first.
All right, right back at me. Okay, so for my first one, starting positive, it's a guy I've been hype about all off season, and I have way less shares than I was hoping for. Parachute third baseman pick, Isak Paredes, with an ADP of 169. So he is a target. He would have to finish in the top 141 on the Razzball Player Rater. And I put in the rundown here. This is the least complex chalkboard pick of all time for me because this is all about the ballpark for Isak Paredes. But to say it that simplistically, in my opinion, is almost like old school analysis. But I don't want to understate how good of a park fit this is for Paredes. Like, I think of all the years we've been doing this, and you think about like Soto to the Yankees or Belly to the Yankees this year, or CJ Cron to the Rockies, I don't think I've ever thought of a ballpark getting more out of a player than what I think the Crawford boxes and Daikin or whatever the new ballpark is, Minute Maid, will be for Isak Paredes. And you have to look at the fact that 2 years ago, we saw Paredes hit 31 homers with a 250 average, and that was in 143 games. Last year, he was still doing fine with his 16 homers in 101 games before he went to the Cubs. And that's where he really, really struggled. He had 3 homers in 52 games. I think that's suppressed his ADP a ton. Wrigley has been one of the worst home run ballparks in recent years. I think it was like bottom 5 in the ballpark factors. And just on looking at the old Savant tool, which oversimplifies, but as just general context, the home runs that Paredes would have had last year if he played all his games in Wrigley Field would have been 13 homers, whereas the home runs in Houston are 26. So doubling that.
Crazy.
And like that, he is like and I know that hopefully most people know this about Paredes. Otherwise you're missing out on kind of a hidden gem, but he is probably the number 1 at stumping Savant. And that's something that like Scott Chu has been big on for Paredes for years and years, that the pull fly balls are where he gets all of his power and production. And because of that, his Savant sliders look icy blue on the stuff that you want to see. But all of his homers come right down the left field line, right by the foul pole. And that is pretty much the perfect marriage for the Crawford boxes. Now, the other thing about Paredes that I'm really excited about is the fact that this guy has so much like runs potential, because he is an 11% walk guy. He's a good doubles guy. And currently he's slated to hit second in the lineup with Yordan Alvarez and Christian Walker behind him. So that's very much in his favor. So I think power could go way up. I think homers, we could see like a career watermark on homers. I think 30 is possible. I threw an outright bet on that, by the way, Steve. They do have Paredes on your FanDuel and DraftKings. I know that's not this podcast, but I'm a believer on this. And I think, it would not be shocking to see a season that looked like 245, 30 home runs, 90 runs scored, and 75, 80 RBIs, which would definitely put him in that top 140 on the player rater. I should note, while I'm kind of picking on Savant on being able to stump them with the pull fly balls, it's a nice little that bat tracking thing that they've added this year, the batted ball breakdowns, where they've added the pull air balls.
I was going to riff on that. There's now some tools on Savant that can tell you why Paredes is successful at what he does. And a tool that came out, I think, Monday too, with the bat tracking data of where contact is made out front, or deep for hitters. And you could see that Paredes does all of his damage, pulling the ball and hitting it out front. There's now a pull fly ball leaderboard, which, no shock, Paredes is on there.
Number 1 on pull air.
Yep. And I know it could sound like hyperbole when you say like all his home runs go to the pull side and to left field. No, that's fact. He has never hit a home run in his career to center or the opposite field. They are all pulled home runs. And also, he had a lot of success because in Tropicana, there is like a little mini Crawford boxes. There's that short porch down the left field line where there's, a shorter part of a much shorter part of the ballpark. It's not as dramatic as the Crawford boxes is, which is good news for Paredes because that's basically the whole left field, right? It was just that little pocket in Tropicana. But yeah, man, I'm with you on this one. I meant to send you this tweet, but there was a great tweet because Houston had an exhibition game Monday night in Minute Maid. I'm not calling it Dakin Park. It's still Minute Maid to me. And of course, Paredes hit a home run into the Crawford boxes in the first game in Houston. Man. And there was a great tweet from @HowTheHell. We're about to witness the most egregious WOBA minus X WOBA discrepancy in the history of the sport, that's just perfect. And we're going to it's just going to be all of these softly hit fly balls that would have been outs in every other ballpark, but they're home runs for Isaac Paredes. So, yeah, I think this is a great call, and I could easily see him, like, if he hits his projections, like, Maybe they're undercounting it a little bit. I'll pull them up if you have
Yeah.
anything else to riff on. But
Yeah, I thought they were like topped out at like 25. I mean, speaking of the mid 20s, it's just worth noting that Paredes is age 26. So we're still, you know, getting into that like power peak. The plate discipline is really good. It's not just the walks, which we talk a lot about walks, a high walk rate being a negative when it's a really good average guy. That's another note for like 5x5 as well. Paredes is like average or below average on the batting average. The fact that he walks a lot kind of mitigates that, and you're just getting the pop, the RBI. But I think the run scored is something that I'm really excited about. Like the fact that he walks so much and has Jordan hitting behind him and has Christian Walker hitting behind him. Like I think we're just going to see a career year from Paredes as long as he stays healthy, and I'm on board.
I don't see like if he plays 140 games, he should hit 30 homers. It should be 2023 all over again. I would think with maybe better runs, just because you
Especially
said
in
with
that
the
lineup.
lineup. So
Yeah.
I'm with you there.
All right. So that's Paredes is number one for me. Steve, let's get a positive target for you to set us off here.
All right. So this one, it came to me during my home league draft this past weekend after looking at my team, and I was just thinking, like, who am I the most excited about to have on this roster? And it's someone that I've rostered in later drafts, in my daily leagues, with IL slots, and maybe that'll come into play with this guy. But I really think that Mike Trout is going to have a Mike Trout type season. Um, with that, I think that it could be like 2022, right? Where he played 130 games but still hit 40 homers. I think that's in the cards. Mike Trout is going at ADP 94 in March. So he would need to finish at ADP 75 or better. Like, there's no way Mike Trout is finishing at 94 or 75. He's either playing
You're right.
130 games and blowing that out of the water, or he's hurt. Oh, and yeah, by the way, in 2022, when he hit 40 home runs, it was only 119 games. So that's all I'm asking for Trout. Like, play, have two IL stints, have two 15-day IL stints. That's it. And God forbid he doesn't have any or one, right? Because then we could see the Mike Trout that was a contender for MVP every year. I don't think there's enough being said about his move to right field. I know that may not seem as big a deal.
That's a good point.
I know maybe people are hoping for a full-time DH role or even first base. And it is annoying that the Angels signed Jorge Soler, but the fact that he's not going to be in center, I think, is a big, big deal. That puts a lot of stress on him. He's been, dealing with injuries for the last half a decade. I think that Trout really will benefit from not being in center. Soler is also a guy who's not a pinnacle of health, a guy that you're not going to, man, we really need to get him in all 7 games this week. No, they'll give him days off too. He's been oft injured as well. So I really think that this is the year that Trout does come back to form and starts to put together, these back end of the career Hall of Fame years that we see from talents like him. I just think that there is so much room for potential. He's had injuries before that he's bounced back from, right? Like he had those chronic back injuries. He figured that out. The next year he had the hamate injury. That's just bad luck. Last year it was the knee, which, that's going to happen with someone that's as big as him and playing center field, and then re-aggravated it. So it's not, I don't think we're in Giancarlo Stanton territory, despite the fact that Trout has missed this much time. This is also the first time in his career, basically, that he's going this low, right? Because last year was like, around pick 50, 60. Yeah, there's some risk. This year, it's like, all right, he got hurt again. That's it. Like, pick 100. I feel like hitters dry up around there. And then there's just Mike Trout sitting there. It's like, all right, I'm just going to take Mike Trout, especially in league where there's ILs, and even not like I think it's worth the risk because if Mike Trout has one IL stint or less, he is I think a top 2 round player. That's how good he still is. Like all the skills are still there. Last year was just a 30 sample game, but he cut his K rate from 29 to 21%, right? The Ks were starting to creep up as he aged. It's a 30 game sample, but that's still meaningful for plate skills and that's a meaningful sample for play discipline and strikeout rate. I may not project him to be all the way back down there, but the 25% that he struck out in spring seems reasonable with those gains last year. The barrel, hard hit, all of that is still Mike Trout. Like the dude hit 40 homers in 119 games 2 years ago. I think if he gets anywhere above 100, that's how good he is. This may hit.
Yeah, I mean, this is Jacob DeGrom, right? I mean, that the similarities are crazy in that they both have, when they're on the field, they are, in a handful of players, even in terms of fantasy value, definitely real life in terms of skill. And they've been off the field for long enough to where they're going into this season saying, I'm going to consciously make changes. I would like to see that actually be beyond right field and maybe less on the base paths, right? Like, isn't that at some point he's got to stop? Like last year, he was on like a 30 home run pace or a 30 stolen base pace.
Yeah, he had
and it's
10
like, we don't
homers,
need that.
10 homers, 6 steals, and 7 attempts in in 29 games.
Yeah,
I mean,
stop running on the base paths so
dude,
much,
but
Mike.
it's crazy. Like with the new stolen base rules, he probably could
Oh, he
he probably
easily
could
could.
steal 40, right?
He
Like what's
easily
this
could.
is
To me, it's just like, yeah, that's like load management
yeah,
for
he's
the, yeah.
90th percentile in sprint speed.
Yeah, but you got to keep it in check. I mean, I do think you're right, Steve, that nobody's talking enough about the right field move. I know Trout himself is talking about it and saying how like he made a joke about when he wanders out to center field. He's like, man, this is a lot bigger than I thought it was, or than I remembered it being. So like he's acclimating and talking about the fact that he needs to run less, that he needs to stay on the field. So it feels very much like DeGrom to me, but DeGrom is going earlier, and that's the name of the game for the chalkboard. So you're saying Trout would need to finish top 75. I guess
Yeah.
looking at his projections for the ones that give him like Oopsie has him at 120 games, which I think you would take.
It's crazy.
32
All the
homers, 10
projections
steals.
have like 103, 100. That's really sad. And I guess that's why the ADP is low, right? Like people plug them in and it's not going to be that much of a value.
Honestly, even the 103, like let's look at the bad X. So it has a 261 average, 27 homers, 6 steals, and like 135 runs and RBIs. It probably would be right around
It
the
would be
fringe, but
around there. Yeah.
maybe short
Yeah.
of it. So you probably do need either Trout to be otherworldly in 100 games or just, 80% likelihood of what you're going to get from Trout in 120 games and you're home free.
Give
So
me
I like it, Steve.
125 games. Give me 125 games.
I think it's a good call. I don't have enough of Trout. I feel like he probably had a pretty volatile like min pick, max pick as well.
Yeah,
Is the
there's a
other
great
thing.
tool. I don't have the graphics saved, but there's a great tool for PL Pro members. That of course Kyle of all people made that break down the ADP at least at NFBC. I'll try and pull it up.
Without looking real quick,
Yeah.
what do you think Trout's min pick and max pick were this season?
You have it. You have it.
I got to pull it up.
And
Yep.
what are you looking at? Just March?
NFBC. This is from November.
From November. Okay, I'll say min pick 120, or sorry, max pick 120, min pick I don't know, like 29. Like, did someone go
Men
crazy
men
on it?
pick men pick was 27.
Oh, nice, nice.
Max pick was 202. Somebody got him at
Wow.
202 in a draft.
Oh,
So
man.
yeah, that is crazy, man.
Yeah.
Very, very big range. I like it, Steve. We'll swing back to me. I better do a fade here. So on my fade, I'm going to start with a pitcher, and this is an opening day tease because we're going to get to this pitcher after this ad break. We'll be right back. Okay, so Steve, this is one that we've faded in April in the past or in cold weather. But this season, I'm giving a full season long fade on Luis Castillo. And Castillo is going right in that range of pitchers where it feels like there's 20 that you'd be fine with. And throughout the offseason, it's just become more and more clear that Castillo is pretty low on the list of who I want to target. Now, granted, he could be just 32 years old and being like a seasoned veteran and not giving it his all in spring training, but the velocity is down to 94 miles per hour after it came down in previous seasons. It was 97 miles per hour in 2022, 96 in 2023, 95 and change in 2024, and now it's down to 94 this spring. It just hasn't looked great in spring. And looking back at his velocity in past spring trainings, it was up higher, like around his note. Like it doesn't look like he's a guy who year in and year out is kind of just chilling and relaxing in spring, and then he turns it on in the regular season, which honestly I was curious if that was the case because he's had that tag of being a slow starter in the cold and in April and May. Like Castillo doesn't like pitching in the cold. And beyond that, just overall the stuff has followed where it's like the changeup that used to be like one of the best, most dominant pitchers has been less and less effective, and he's used it less and less. I know he offset that when he really worked on that new slider and threw that more, but overall his strikeout numbers have just gone down. They went down quite a bit last year from 27 and change down to 24. And that's where I'm just kind of wondering, part of it is the pitchers around him, but for this specific exercise, I think there is a chance that if the fastball isn't good and he's not throwing it hard, he has some of the worst extension. I know we talk about extension all the time for guys who have like the 7-foot extension. Castillo is among like the lower, like the least amount of extension in the majors, and it went down from where it was at. So yeah, there's reasons for concern. I know there's also some possible trade rumors. He addressed those, saying like he knows it's part of the job. He has a no trade clause, but he's talked about how if it happens, it happens. He's been at this spot in his career before, away from T-Mobile, because Seattle's obviously a pitching haven. Last year, Castillo had a 4.25 ERA and a 1.28 WHIP. So if that happens, that even, underlines this even more. Now he would have to go from 111 to 133. So I do think, that would be a surprise if Castillo was outside of the top 130. And it would just be a new era. But this stuff happens. Like he's pitched for a lot of years now, which is another thing. He's got like mileage on the arm. Overall, I'm just not that excited about Castillo. And I think he will have good starts and he will eat up volume as long as he stays healthy because he's proven he can be kind of a workhorse. But I just think the ratios aren't going to be there. And I think we could be getting into a territory, which is crazy to say, where Castillo has less than a strikeout per inning. And overall, I think you're just looking at around a 4 ERA, a whip that's not great. He has some of those long, frustrating innings where he kind of, holds his head and complains and, has trouble getting out. I think the whip is not safe where it could be like a 115, 120. And yeah, I mean, he should get some wins for how late he goes into games, but I think Castillo's a fade for me. And it was harder this year, but this was the one out of the pitchers that I was like, I could see this being a drop off for him. I don't have any shares. How about you, Steve?
I do not have any shares either. I'm pretty much with you lockstep with this. the decrease in strikeout rate and swing strike rate in particular is pretty concerning. He went from a 14.7% swing strike rate in 2023 to an 11.8% swing strike rate in 2024. His career, he's been around 13.7, so close to that 14 number. To drop off the 2 percentage points is a big deal, especially for a guy that, has had some trouble with homers, even in T-Mobile, a place that's good for it. It's still 1.28 homers per nine over the last 2 years that he's been there. It was actually shockingly better, much better in Cincinnati. Like he ran home run rates under 1 per nine in Cincinnati, which is absolutely incredible and shows how good he was in his true prime. I don't know if everything's going to fall apart for Castillo. I don't think so. But I don't want to be. I'd rather be a year too early on Castillo than a year late. Like there's been some signs, like those April struggles snuck into May. The fastball velocity, like you hit on, all of the underlying numbers are slowly starting to decline. He still may very well be a top 30 pitcher, return value, have that great park, be close to a strikeout per nine, have a mid 3 ERA with a, whip under 1.2. That's, I think, the most likely outcome. But there are those little bit of signs that there are some declining skills and underlying skill indicators that give me a little bit of pause that, there's so many good pitchers. I'll just take one with a little bit more upside that seems to be on the incline rather than a decline, like Castillo is. So with you on that one.
Yeah, and you don't want to read into spring too much, but over 18 innings, he has 11 strikeouts so far, and yeah, that's coming with the velocity that's concerning. So yeah, I wouldn't be shocked, but also he's a wily veteran, and I wouldn't be shocked the other way around. Like I said, it was kind of a struggle. I kind of started with guys that I'm not drafting and that I'm not even considering in that range. And maybe that's kind of colored by how much I like names around Castillo. But he's definitely not the pitcher that he was in Cincinnati, between the changeup, the ground ball rate, all of that. So he's kind of reinvented himself, and it's like, maybe he won't be able to pull a Houdini and pull this one out with like a full, approach change like he had done when he got to Seattle. So yeah, that's fade number one for me. Swinging over to you, Steve, for fade number one for you.
This one is going to cause a bit of controversy. My first fade is your boy, Ketel Marte. He is going at pick 29. So to be 20% worse than that, he would need to finish past pick 35. I don't really like doing fades on guys that high because it's just not that much of a fall, but I don't think that Ketel Marte is a value where he is. I think he is priced there because of how horrible second base is. And I like Ketel Marte as a player. I believe the projections. That's where I think he is as a player. I think he plays close to 150 games. I think he has 25 homers, 90 runs, 90 RBIs, and 830 OPS, and is 25% to 30% better than the league, which is really, really good. I don't think that's a second round pick, just because he's not going to really provide you many steals. I think the homer upside is more like that 25, not the 36 that we saw. And I think the fact that he had this amazing career year with the skills to back it up. Yes, those skills are to back it up. All the underlying skills are there to back it up. And the fact that second base seemingly gets worse every year. I think he's just bumped up artificially because of how thin that position is. I just don't believe that he is now all of a sudden a 12.3% barrel rate guy when his career barrel rate is 6.3%. Yes, it's been higher in recent years. I'll even give him an 8-9% barrel rate, which will get him to those upper 20 homers. But I don't think this is the new Ketel Marte that ran, a 53% hard hit rate with that extreme barrel rate, a BABIP, he's been a high BABIP guy, but I think he's more of a 270 hitter than the 292. And the thing that jumps off the page most for me, he had a 26% home run the fly ball rate last year. His career is 13%. In the 2 years that he was, showing the most power, it was like 14 and 15%. It's just amazing that he had 36 homers in 136 games last year. Props to him. Yeah, the skills back it up. I just don't think that he's going to repeat this. I think he's a great player. I think it's just, the combination of buying at the peak and being inflated due to position eligibility and position scarcity. So not so much against Ketel Marte. I even do have a share. I think, if he falls to the third or fourth round, but I just can't invest a middle of the round, a pick 20 overall or even 25 overall to Ketel Marte that I think isn't going to just provide the stats to back that up. Yes, the position is great, but I don't think the stats will be there.
Yeah, I mean, he's a good name for this exercise because of you mentioned like he's my boy. Like I've grabbed him in a couple drafts, I think, and a big part of that has been position. Now, last year on the player rater, he finished 18th.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's this, incredible tax. Like there's a little bit, if everybody bought what he did last year, he'd be going at 18 or maybe even earlier, right? Because then you add the position tax. So him going at 29 bakes in a little bit of regression, but probably not enough for his homers to drop from 36 down to 28. So 8 homers less. They got runs and RBIs. The average is the other biggest drop off, like you said. So pretty much they got his average coming down 16 points and his home runs coming down 8 points, at which, you just look at the changes he made, which were notable. I mean, it's not like it was just strictly home run to fly ball. I mean, he hit the ball harder than ever. The barrel rate went up. His pull percentage was 47%. It was a career high by a long shot. So I think that there's things you can point to. I mean, he punished fastballs in a way that he's never done in the past. And he pulled the ball more and he put it in the air more on those pulls. So the question just becomes, can that approach stick? And is that who he is at age 31? Or is it more just like he's a B plus? And in which case, this is a great chalkboard pick because you got to be pretty dang good to be a top 35 player. And you can't just be solid across the board. You have to be exceptional. So yeah, not too much pushback here, Steve. I do like Marte. I think he's a great player. I think he's got a great underrated kind of fantasy skill set. But will it be enough for him to do it again? Yeah, I think it's totally fair to throw him on the fades. But I'll be cheering for him despite you having him as a fade here.
Yeah, I mean, there are like I said to start, there are underlying skills that back it up. That barrel rate, the pull air percentage was the best of his career, or second best. The hard hit, and the fact that he did that in 136 games. Like maybe if he plays 155, he will get we'll get to 35 homers again. I just think that there is some regression due back to his skills that he's shown for the previous 7 seasons rather than just last year. So
yeah, it would be a late bloomer.
I sometimes miss that. I sometimes miss these sort of breakouts and don't believe him. It's like, at age 32, he's not going to be this player now, right? And maybe he is. I don't know exactly who a name that comes directly to mind that sort of has a late season renaissance like that, but I sometimes miss on players like that. But I'm betting on the track record that he's still just a really, really good second baseman, just not a second rounder.
Yeah, that's a fun exercise. That would take us all night. But yeah, there's got to be some. I mean, it's not like Ketel Marte wasn't I mean, he was a name we were all excited about, and he showed
Yeah.
flashes, but then he just started kind of settling in as like this, between pick 70 and 110. And he was always a guy, like we were just talking about Trout, who had a pretty big range of min pick, max picks, because there were some like Ketel Marte truthers out there. You know what I mean? That would like, they would reach for him, and they were all about him. I'm trying to look. When did Charlie Blackman? He was the name that came. I mean,
Yeah,
obviously he had speed to the
that was
profile,
like
but like,
Coors too, and he was more of just a pop-up prospect, and like he was like a late bloomer. I'm thinking more of like an established guy that's like, okay, now this guy is like a 35 homer hitter. I don't want to spend
yeah,
all night thinking about it,
yeah,
but that's sort of just the archetype that I'm thinking of.
it's fair.
I don't know. Maybe I'll think it as the show goes on, but I
Mm-hmm.
think that 2023 Ketel Marte is what you're going to get, and that's really good. That's 25 homers, 844 OPS. Even chipped in 8 steals, but he wasn't like where did he finish on the player rater
I
in
mean, the team got better too last year. I mean,
2023?
last year
Yeah,
was the best
that's
that
fair.
the D-backs were as a team for a long time, and he was a part of that. But yeah, valid. I think the runs will stay up there. I think you could split the difference. I think it's a good bet though. It's somewhere in that range. I don't think he's going to be like a top 10 guy. So that's fade number 1. Okay, getting back over to the positives. We got 2 left here, a target and a fade. We're going to take our second ad break, and we'll be right back after this. Okay, so back over to the positive grounds here. I got Ian Happ, Steve, and this was a different shape of a chalkboard pick because usually I'm looking for guys that I would call breakouts or busts, and Happ is one that just seems like a value and just a solid pick to return that value. And so this would have to be a top 102 player. And after 5 years of doing this, it dawned on me that maybe I should go back and look at guys and where they landed last year on the player rater. And Happ last season, I'll read his stat line real quick. A 243 average, 25 homers, 13 steals, 89 runs, 86 RBIs. That feels pretty Ian Happ to me, especially when you bring in Craig Counsell. Like the Cubs were running a lot more last season. To me, that feels very Happ. And that was good enough for number 60 on the Razzball player rater. So his ADP is double that at 122. And I don't have a lot of reasons to think that Happ won't repeat that or even get better. This is one that, like, I know I mentioned here, spoiler alert, my next fade is not Seiya Suzuki, but I think I'm as interested in Happ as I am Suzuki, just in terms of, I mean, obviously you're losing some average, but I think Suzuki's average could come down a little bit. I think Happ still has excellent like athleticism in terms of pop and speed. And I think that Happ just has a lot of things that are like in his favor. So last year, some of the standouts, best hard hit rate of his entire career, except for the COVID year, which shortened season. An 11.7% barrel rate. That was his best barrel rate since 2019, which we all know is the rabbit ball era. This one shocked me. Fastest sprint speed of Happ's career minus his rookie year was last year. And then you look at the Cubs lineup context and the fact that he now has Seiya Suzuki, hopefully healthy, and a Kyle Tucker behind him in this lineup. He walks at a good rate. I think that like this guy is a lock for runs. Like more than anything, taking a step back, if you say, why was Happ 60th on the Razzball player rater? I think it just shows how valuable those 89 runs and 86 RBIs are together. Like, because you look at the average, it's not good. You look at 25 and 13, it's good, but it's not amazing. It's really the fact that he's scoring runs, he's getting RBIs, and that gets overlooked. Like in this era of us looking at average, power, speed, we overlook the fact of like, are they good base runners? And most of all for Happ, are they durable? Like this guy is an Iron Man. He's missed an average of 7 games per season since 2020. So you can chalk him up for like 100. Obviously you can never predict injury, but as long as there's not a big injury, this guy should be around for like 150, 155 games. And yeah, I think that the average could come up from 243. It's been higher than that in the past. The homers could be higher than 25% or 25 with all of his like hard hit and barrel rate stuff. The run scored could be higher with Kyle Tucker hitting behind him. And with his sprint speed and Craig Counsell there, I don't think 13 is like the career high on steals for Happ. So overall, still just age 30. I think Happ is very underrated. And again, wish I had more shares, but I think this is one that is kind of a no sweat bet for him to return value. So that's not the chalkboard pick I thought I would have, but here I am as a Cardinals fan talking about how I think Ian Happ is being slept on a little bit.
I think there's something about Happ just being like the most boring good player. Like the fact that he hits like just below 250.
He's never turned the corner like
Yeah,
fully.
and was like a big prospect and career high of 25 homers. Came up his first year and was 24-8 and was supposed to be this next big part of the Cubs dynasty, right? And never it kind of stumbled a bit the next 2 years after that, 2018, 2019. I think Happ's a really good player and this is a really good call. He has been 20% or more or better than league average every year since 2019. 2021 was a bit of an outlier. Had a pretty low BABIP, struck out the most of his career, but still had some, impressive barrel and hard hit numbers that show you there still was some talent there. And he's just been a consistent player that plays almost every day, like you said. Is you could pencil him in for close to 90 runs and RBIs, double-digit steals, 20 homers. And yeah, sure, maybe the average isn't going to be plus, but it's also not going to be someone that's really in danger of hitting 220 or anything like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I think this is a great call. And I think just because it's kind of like this boring player, there's just a discount that isn't warranted. And I think Happ, I have a few shares. I think he's a great like OF2 or even in like NFBC leagues. If you just didn't grab an outfielder, like it's okay if Happ's your first one, you double tap on a few in that range. Happ is a really good player, and I think there's just like some sort of boring tax applied to him that shouldn't be, or discount applied to him that shouldn't be.
Yeah, big time. I think, and I know this year that it's been kind of trendy to look at average a lot more, and for good reason, that like average kind of runs out and you can find like late speed and stuff. But I like, again, the title of the thesis is don't overlook durability and runs and RBIs. And I think that's what Happ does, that like a lot of guys being drafted around him aren't going to even sniff 160 runs and RBIs, but it's just they have 25 points on them on batting average, things like that. So yeah, that was an interesting one, but yeah, I totally agree. I think there's a boring tax going on with Ian Happ. But Steve, let's get to your next target here.
All right, my next target, someone I've talked about a bunch this draft season, and I have a good amount of shares of, and that's Austin Riley. Austin Riley's currently going at pick 28, so he would need to be 20% better than that. That's 22, so firmly in a top 15-ish hitter season. It would be a lot for him to do that, but I think that Austin Riley has the skills to do so. I'm betting big on the Braves bouncing back. I was deciding between having Austin Riley on my chalkboard as a target or Matt Olson. And I kind of just had a tiebreaker just because Austin Riley is, in his age 28 season, the power prime of his career. I think that the Braves last year had like a Murphy's Law of just everything going wrong. We talked about it on recent episodes. The reason why they were good was like because of these pop-up pitching prospects and Schwellenbach and projects and converting Reynaldo Lopez, spoiler alert, to a reliever and how much success he had. And they just couldn't buy any luck with injuries at all, other than Chris Sale staying healthy until, oh, by the way, the September in the playoffs when they needed them. So everything went absolutely wrong for the Braves last year, including Riley. He started off slow, which sometimes he does. Finally got going, was on, the 8 to 10 homer month pace that he was, and could have it was on his way to salvaging his season until he was hit on the hand and he wasn't even able to come back for the playoffs. So I just think that had Riley had a full healthy year, it would have been closer to the 37, 38 homers, even though he had, only 19 through 110 games. He's the kind of guy that can hit 10 homers in a month. That would have brought that total up closer to 35 if he hit, 7 in August and 10 in September, something like that. So I think all the skills are still there. The hard hit rate was the best of his career last year at 53.4%. The barrel rate was the second best of his career at 14.9% to 15.7 in 2022. So despite the lack of performance in the first few months of the season and the injury lucks, Austin Riley had the best year of his career skills wise, looking at hard hit rate and barrel rate. So I just think that there is a top third baseman. If this was this would be like a lukewarm bold prediction, but I would predict Austin Riley to be the most valuable third baseman in fantasy baseball next year. I could see that happening. I could see him coming close to 40 homers again, with a better average. He hit over the last 3 years prior to 2024, 303, 273, 281. So despite a high-ish K rate of a mid-20s K rate, he could still hit for average because he hits the ball so hard. I really like Austin Riley this year and think that he's being discounted because of injury and slight bad luck that the Braves all had last year. That lineup, I think they could be the best offense in the league again easily.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, we've talked about Riley. I'm totally on board, Steve, in terms of the undervalued thing. I like that you did this one because I feel like, Marte doesn't have to drop much to be a fade, but Riley has to get even better than where he's at. So these two kind of like offset each other.
He's not really being discounted. He's not really, which
not.
Is smart. Like he shouldn't be.
Right. But nonetheless, it's like going from 28 to 22, like he's got to be elite. So I think he's had a couple frosty Aprils in his career. So I think I'll watch closely. Like, he's definitely one of those guys that can go off and have like a 10 homer month. And I think he did last year or 2 years ago, where he just went like nuclear after it took so long for him to get going. And it would be, you almost wonder if he starts the season like that, like then what's the ceiling? Like he could probably put together a Matt Olson type of year with like, because it has, what's his high water mark on homers? Has he ever gotten 40?
38.
See, that's what I'm saying. I think he won't retire without having a season where it's like 44, 46 bombs. Like he has just real pop. And then everything we were talking about, Happ with the runs and RBIs, like what do you want? Because the Braves are going to bounce back this year. And yeah, he's going to have Olsen, Ozuna, Harris all behind him.
And Acuna's coming back, by the way. Albie is back healthy. Riley had a 14.3% homer on the fly ball rate. His career is 19.5. It was close. It was at 20 or above basically every other year of his career, except for last year. So really unlucky for Riley last year.
Yep. And the K rate, kind of scooted back. But honestly, since he fixed like the real issues right when he came up and it was like 36%, he's kind of put all that stuff to bed. So I like it. Where's his projection? Let's see. ATC's got him at 268, 32 homers, 92 runs, 92 RBIs. Like that's got to be pretty dang close to be in top 22.
I think it would have to be the oopsie projection of 36 homers, 281, 870 OPS with
You think?
120 RBIs and 102 runs. That would do it. If he's
Yeah.
if he's the oopsie or bad X projection,
I
which
was gonna say even in the 270s, like where Zips DC, where it's got like 33 homers, a 275, and pretty much 200 runs and RBIs. Like I have to
with
imagine that would get
with
there.
no
But
steals, he's got to get close to 40. You
you
know,
think even with the runs and RBIs that high? Okay.
he's either got to get if he's at 260, he's got to get like 240 runs and RBIs somehow combined, or
Mm-hmm.
220 with 35 homers, or
Which he
he's got
could.
to get above 40 homers um,
Yeah.
without those steals, which I think he could do. I think that's not out of the question. I think for Riley.
He could, yeah. 117 runs in 2023 with 97 RBIs.
Yeah,
Like that offense is
yeah,
good enough. It's
yeah,
it's like the Dodgers thing. So
yeah.
I like it there with Riley. Man, I guess we timed it out like this, so we got to end on a fade, which is a
Yeah.
little harsh. But yeah, I mentioned Suzuki and I typed out the whole thing, Steve, and it just didn't feel right. I was like, this guy. I want to cheer for the health. I don't think he's like a 260 XBA or like his XBA is. So it's not Suzuki. It's CJ Abrams that I'm going with, who's at an ADP of 48. And this would have to move him back to 58. And I like Abrams too. And I think that I was more out on him in the past year and a half. And I think he's proven that he's not like a 220 guy. He has some of the pop that can, complement all the speed. Like he's proven that some of the prospect hype around his hit tool was not a mirage. I think that this goes back to the inverse of what I was saying with Happ is the season that Abrams had last year, which was a 246 average, 20 home runs, 31 steals. You look at that and you're like, man, that's a great year. It's average, so it won't kill you at 246. 20 homers is great from a speedster like that. 31 steals, very solid. That was 75th on the Razzball Player Rater, and here he is being drafted at pick 48. So I think it just goes to show that runs and RBIs is all the difference, because where Happ had 160 plus, Abrams is at like 144. So that like 20 runs and RBIs does add up. And I know that the Nats are a little bit better and a little more interesting of an offense, but honestly, when you look up and down and like Dylan Cruz, Wood, Josh Bell at cleanup, like it's good, but I don't know that he's going to be like 105 or 100 runs scored. And I really don't think the RBIs are going to be that impressive. Now the steals is the interesting part with Abrams, because he did attempt 43 last year, but got caught 12 times. So yes, if he runs wild and has like a 45-50 steal year, I think that my prediction is in trouble here. But the other thing is, I do think while he's not like a Mendoza line guy, I don't know that I'm ready to just ordain, even though he's been consistent. I think he's like been at 246 or 247 for like 2 or 3 years running.
Yeah.
I'm
Almost
a
like Chris
little
Davis territory. Yeah.
I'm a little worried at how streaky his production comes, where it's like last year he had the 205 month in May, a 176 in July, a 187 in August, like some of those really cold months. It's just sometimes you dig yourself in such a hole that you don't come out of it on a batting average year. So I don't think that like if I'm going with a 246 guy, I would love to see it much more like repeatable and reliable, as opposed to like these massive peaks and valleys. Like those streaky guys make me a little bit nervous if they don't have a lot of room on average. Like if it's a 285 to 260 type of thing, not as worried. 246 to 230, I'm a little bit worried. Especially when he doesn't have the lineup context to be like, 90 runs and RBIs. So yeah, I think I just wouldn't be shocked if Abrams was 235, 15 homers, even 40 steals with the runs and RBIs that he doesn't get. I think that would move him outside of the top 58. This is not me calling Abrams a bust. This is me just saying I think he finishes outside of the top 60 in fantasy this year, which is the name of the game. So don't have any shares of Abrams, like the player. I like that you like Tim Steve, kind of ahead of the breakout. But yeah, at this cost, I'm out. What do you think on that one?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of torn on Abrams. There's been such up and downs to his career so far, even though it's really been parts of just 3 seasons, right? Like 2023, the start was so bad, and then all of a sudden something clicked around June. He was like one of the best fantasy players and stole those 47 bases basically in 3 months and flashed good power. And really, for the most part, sort of at least met some of those lofty expectations. 20 homers in 38 games, 31 steals in 131 games. That's good. There is streakiness to it. I think that's going to get better as he gets older.
Yeah, he's
He's
still
only
young.
entering his age 24 season. Not to get into this, soft analysis, and I'm not passing any judgment. We all make mistakes, but the whole thing with the casino at the end of the year and
Mhm.
being out in Chicago on a all night before a day game and not finishing the career with the team, that's a learning moment, right? Like he could come back from that and now be a more mature, well-rounded player and person, and handle this job in a better way that could lead to a breakout year, and a guy that has the ability to probably hit mid 20s to upper 20s homers and potentially steal 50 plus bases, right? He went 47 for 51 in 2023 in 151 games. I know he got caught 12 times last year, but he still attempted 43 stolen bases in 138 games. Like
Mhm.
he has the skill to go 40 and caught 2 times, or 45 and caught a few times, right? I just don't know when that will be. If he's what he was again the last 2 years, yes, he's going to finish outside of the top 60, right? But there is potential for more here. I just don't know when that's going to come for Abrams, and it may be a year or two for now, but I do see some monster seasons in him. I don't currently have any shares, and I don't know how I necessarily feel about that. I could see a CJ Abrams popping off one of these years, and maybe this year will be it. I don't know though. It might be a few years down the line.
What's his home run to fly ball profile look like? Because he's another guy that like it looks like all of his homers, like he doesn't have a great barrel rate. He doesn't even have a good barrel rate, but they're all pole homers. But he's 75th. Now, granted, there's no like qualified. He's just not like elite on pole air shots. So I'm just curious, like, are we ready to say that he's like a safe source of 20 plus homers, or is that, I mean, I guess projections have him around like 18. Um,
I think that's a good floor. It's been 11.5% and 10.7% for the last 2 years. So
Reasonable. Yeah.
yeah, it's reasonable.
What do you think about
I mean, the pull air, the 21.8% of pull when he pulls in the air is good. That is in the upper percentages of the league.
above average? Yeah,
Yeah,
but not
yeah,
excellent for having like a 6% barrel rate, or yeah, I guess 7% barrel rate is okay.
yeah. So
But yeah,
Isaac Paredes leads pull air at 35%, 35%. So put that in context. Like overall, um, CJ Abrams 75th in the league, ahead of guys like Cody Bellinger, Mookie Betts, Kerry Carpenter, right around Vinny Pasquantino, Michael Conforto. So does put a good amount of pulled fly balls into his profile. So there is a bit, and you can see that in the spray chart too. Like it's Isaac Paredes
for
type.
sure.
It's all
For
pulled.
sure.
And Nationals Park is sneakily a good place to hit, especially in the summer when
Yeah, when
it
it's
gets
hot.
hot. So
Yeah.
I think 20 homers is fair. I just don't know. Like it's it's kind like where he's priced. It's like it's kind of fair almost. It's like yeah, it's not fully pricing in a breakout, but it's like yeah, CJ Abrams definitely could break out and could put it all together. It's just a matter if he does, and I don't know if that will be the case this year.
Hmm. I think the steals go up. I think there's risk that homers go down. I think there's risk that average goes down, which maybe I'm alone on that one. But then the other part is I really just don't think that like the season he just had was a good season, and it was 25th. So I'm sorry, 75th on the
Yeah.
player rater. So that's part of the gamesmanship of it is I just don't think he's going to do enough to be a top 55 type of player, but could be wrong. Let's see. But Steve, you're up for your second fade here.
All right, my last fade. This one may be controversial as well, but my last fade is Roki Sasaki. I love him long term. Like I would take him in leagues where he was available in first year player drafts, first overall. I think that he is going to be a great pitcher and one of the best pitchers in the league for a long time. I just don't think it's going to be now. Um, there's some injury rumblings, right? Like there was rumors that he was considering Tommy John last year. There's rumors that's why he wanted to come over early because it's going to need to happen soon. It's there's no hard sources. It's all speculation on this, but that was part of the speculation why he was coming over. The velocity is down a tick or two from the World Baseball Classic when he was like the hottest thing and pumping 100 on average, and all of his fastballs were at 100. Now it's more like 97, 96. Um, I think that there is some innings risk just because of injuries potential and the fact that the Dodgers are just going to Dodger. They're going to do the 6-man rotation. Ohtani's going to be back seemingly sometime in May or June into rotation. And I think more so on that, like injury risk aside, which is all just speculation. Who knows? Maybe he could be healthy. I think a lot like we're spoiled by the success of these Japanese pitchers that have come over, but those guys have come over at later ages and later stages in their career after they've known how to pitch and learned to pitch in a professional league in the second best league in the world and have developed their craft of pitching because of the posting rules. They've come over at a later age. All of these guys, from guys like Hiroki Kuroda, Hisashi Iwakuma, Kodai Senga, Tanaka, Amanaga last year, those guys were all close to the 30 and have been pitching professionally in Japan for 5 to 7 years before they're sometimes even longer. Sasaki's coming over. He's just a kid. He's been a professional since he's been 21, since he's been since 19. He's still only 23. So I think there's still a lot to hone in his arsenal,
How old
especially
was Darvish? Real quick, just curious on this.
that's
So
a good one. I'll look at when
2012 is what 13 years ago. So Darvish would have been 25. So this is a
so
little bit
a
closer,
little bit
but even
older,
younger
but
than
maybe
Darvish.
that's a good comp. That maybe that's closer. But even then, um, Darvish pitched for longer in the MPB. So I think that there is some polishing to be done, especially when he doesn't have a spinning off speed, right? Like he doesn't have a slider or a cutter yet that Senga used to break out. It's really that fastball and then the amazing splitter, which the splitter I think could be the best.
Oh yeah,
The best pitch in the league right now.
yeah.
But with slightly poor fastball shape, a little bit of declining velocity, I just think that there's going to be some struggles for Sasaki early on. And I think that it's a compounding thing. And I'll end with this, like his strikeout minus walk rate, which is, we talk about how powerful of a tool it is. If like that's the one for on a stranded desert island, and you could use one pitching metric for the rest of your life, it's K minus BB. From 2021 to 2024, his K minus BB went 20.2 when he was 19 years old and pitched 63 innings in the MPB. Amazing. To 30.6 to 34.2 down to 21.6 last year. So it went from elite, like, okay, this guy's going to come over and beat Darvish to like, okay, this looks pretty good. I think he can get back there and eventually could be a guy that's one of the best pitchers in the league and has 30% strikeout minus walk rates. But I think it may take some time. And I am fading Sasaki. And I don't think I said this at the top, but he's going at pick 103. I think he's going to finish below 124. That's where he would be for the chalkboard pick.
I think it's a good. This is like the Trout inverse because the way I see it is because and you brought up some good points for causes for concern. I think honestly, to me, it all comes down to volume because I just think he is so filthy and like I know what you're saying. Like you need to get your sea legs a little bit. You need to get used to getting out of jams and yeah, the whip is a question mark, and the walk rate and stuff. But I think his stuff, I don't think I'm as nervous about the fastball as like Nick, and
Yeah.
I've heard on some other stuff, but just like 7-1, 97, like I still think that playing off of the splitter is so nasty that I really do think he's going to be electric and like kind of figure it out. But to me, I just don't think we're going to see more than like 120 innings from him because the Dodgers are going to want to, have him be a part of the postseason plans. And they're probably going to be
Great
winning
point.
so many games to
Great
where it's
point.
not going to matter. So like to me, I think it's the flip of Trout, where it's like if Trout can play 120 games, he's good to go. I think if you told me Sasaki was giving me 135, 140 innings, I would be on board with him like making good on his 100 ADP. Honestly, Steve, I don't know about you, but I thought at the start of the offseason that Roki Sasaki by this point was going to be an ADP like 60.
I think
Just
people
because of
share those
Yamamoto and
concerns. I
everything. Yeah,
think
they do. They
the
do.
spring velocity, it's at 90. It's at okay. I don't have it in front of me, but
He was sitting 98 in
yeah, his
Japan, but
first
yeah,
start, and I think he was sitting 98 his first start, and then there was um some decline. I want to see where he was because he did pitch in
well, in the
the
Japan
Japan
series, I think
series. He's at
he was at
98.
98.
He was at 98.
Um,
And I think that slowly declined over his 3 innings, right? And I think maybe
oh, so it came
he
down a
was
little
pumping 100 in the first inning just
bit.
because,
Mhm.
he's back in his home, and so it's his
Oh
first
yeah,
major
that's
league
the
debut, like
adrenaline. Yeah.
yeah, of course you're gonna have that. So I think
I hear you though. I
I
think that
share
that's
the innings
reasonable.
concern, and then also I think there may be some growing pains.
A little bit
Yeah,
of performance. Yeah,
yeah.
that's fair. I don't think that's a bad one. Okay. So yeah, to recap me and Steve's our targets, I had Isak Paredes, Ian Happ. Steve's targets, he had Mike Trout and Austin Riley. And then for fades, I had Luis Castillo and CJ Abrams. And Steve had Ketel Marte and Roki Sasaki. As we mentioned, we've got our guest that we'll be talking about on the podcast. But that rounds us out for this episode for the live stream. Sincerely hope all of you guys have a wonderful opening day. It's a long winter. These are the times when you got to sit back, hopefully try not to get too worked up about a 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts. Just enjoy that baseball is back. Honor the traditions that you guys have for opening day and have a fantastic, reunion with baseball. This is what it's all about, watching your guys and just enjoying the pastime. So very much just pumped for it, Steve. And I'm sure we'll be texting, dude, but so excited that it's finally here, man.
Yeah. This is the best. This is what we've all been waiting for. I know we talk ourselves into, oh, draft season is the best season. I love when it's the year end and we could take a step back and analyze it. But no, that's just we're telling small little lies to ourselves. The best time is when baseball is on, and baseball is going to be on now for the next 6 months every single day. It is amazing. Enjoy it. Enjoy your fantasy teams and enjoy every second of it. It is truly the best. It's a great community we built here. Enjoy doing the live shows, and interacting with the chat. One thing I will ask is, please give us a rating and review. That will mean the world to us as we enter this new season. We got some fun stuff lined up. We'll be streaming mostly every Wednesday. If it's not Wednesday, it'll be some other time during the week that we make it work. But excited to start breaking down some real baseball and talking about the 2025 season with you all. So thanks again. I appreciate it, and enjoy the baseball, everyone.
Enjoy it, guys. Thanks for talking baseball with us.